What do you do when your family's honor has been taken from you? How do you get it back? You have to fight for it, of course. Hey, how's it going? I'm here. Today we're going to talk about Mafia Definitive Edition, but not in the way you might think. We talk about this game through the lens of one of my favorite movies of all time, The Godfather Part 3. There's a lot of parallels here that I want to go over with you guys because, in the end, even the Don cries alone. So let's jump into it. The family Corleone has been torn apart by betrayals. One son is dead, another is paralyzed, a daughter is missing. The Don is getting old. This is where Michael comes in. Michael was always the black sheep of the family. He had a legitimate business career going on. But after his father, Vito Corleone, was betrayed and nearly killed, he came out of hiding to help take care of the family business. The problem is now he's addicted to the power the family business brings him. He can't let go of it, even though it's destroying his life and the lives of everyone around him. He woe and be able to find peace until he takes out the people who took away his brother's life, and his sister's life, and his sister's honor. That's why he turns to the Vatican, trying to buy his way into making a saint out of his deceased brother. It's an insanely clever move. His reasoning is that if he gets this young girl out of a bad situation, then maybe, just maybe, he can get some of the sins his brother committed forgiven, so he can go to heaven instead of hell. What could possibly go wrong? Everything. Because like I said before, Michael is addicted to the power he gets from being the head of the most feared crime families in New York. We see this in Mafia as well. The game opens up with a flashback showing us how the most powerful crime families in the U.S. were taken down. After the death of Don Cries, the most powerful mob boss, his empire is broken apart and sold to the highest bidder. This is where our story begins. We play as Tommy Angelo, a working-class guy who drives a taxi to make ends meet. One day he picks up 3 mobsters as passengers. They ask him to drive them to a bank, but once they arrive, things go terribly wrong, and Tommy finds himself right in the middle of a war between the 5 families. He manages to escape, and he runs to the family that the men he was driving for worked under. And he shows up, they take him in without hesitation because of the natural charisma he has. They immediately put him to work doing small jobs. And like any good Mafia story, he works his way up by following orders and climbing the ladder. This is very similar to Michael Corleone. Like Michael, Tommy isn't really built for this kind of life. But like Michael, he gets addicted to the power. If you've played Mafia, you know there are some characters that stand out more than others. There's Paulie, the wise guy who's always drinking and smoking. Frank, the hothead, who would rather shoot first and ask questions later. Sam, the loyal guy who would take a bullet for his friends. And then there's Lucy. Unlike in The Godfather Part 3, however, she wasn't the one who got hurt. But she was definitely the one who suffered the most because of what happened. Remember, she's a woman in a man's world, and the choices that these men make affect her directly. She doesn't have the luxury of being able to run off to become a nun like Michael's sister did. She also didn't have the money to buy her way into safety like Michael's sister did. All she had was her looks and what she could bring to the table. And unfortunately, that wasn't enough. Still, she tried to break free from it all, but each attempt only made things worse. She became a pawn in the game and eventually was taken away, never to be seen again. If you don't believe me, go back and play the game again. I promise you. You will see her as Mary Corleone. She's acting out of fear and desperation. Tommy makes some big mistakes along the way, but thankfully he can always count on his 2 best friends to save his ass. This is much like Michael, who, despite everything he did, still had Frito and Sonny in his corner, at least for a little while. Throughout the game, you will make some questionable decisions that will impact how other characters view you. This is one of the best parts of the game, because it adds another layer to an already great story. It gives us more reasons to care about what happens to the characters. Just like in The Godfather Part 3, there are plenty of moments in Mafia that make you feel like you're watching a movie. The cutscenes are incredibly well done, especially when compared to other games of the era. The voice acting is superb, and the story keeps you on the edge of your seat. You genuinely care about these people and what happens to them. Michael was willing to sacrifice anyone to keep his power, including the woman he loved. He was so consumed with fear that he even killed her. Tommy, too, becomes consumed with fear, albeit in a different way. He becomes afraid of losing everything he's gained, even though everything he's gained is what's destroying him and his family. Towards the end of both stories, we see just how far fear can take a person. Both Michael and Tommy make terrible choices, but in the end, it's their love for their family that redeems them. After betraying his own blood family, Michael realizes that he can't live with himself anymore. He decides to give up his power and go to the Vatican to seek forgiveness. He falls ill and ends up dying in Connie's arms. He finally found peace. Tommy, on the other hand, goes to Lucy's funeral. Her ghost appears and tells him he could have saved her. He realizes that his greed and selfishness have destroyed him and his family. He goes to the lake and sits on the dock crying. Now, unlike Michael, he doesn't die, at least not in the original game. Instead, he's left to suffer and live the rest of his life alone. Thankfully, Mafia 2 gave us some closure for Tommy's story. If you've never played it, I highly recommend you do. Mafia is a game about loyalty, family, betrayal, and redemption. It's a game about the choices you make and how those choices affect not only you, but everyone around you. It's a game about the consequences of your actions. It's a game that will stay with you long after you've finished playing it. These are all things I can say about The Godfather Part 3 as well. At the core, both stories are about family. The Corleones and The Godfather Part 3. It's the 5 families in Mafia. Each family is made up of individuals who are all trying to survive in a world that's constantly changing. The old ways are no longer working, but they're too afraid to change with the times. They cling to the past, which ultimately leads to their downfall. All they have is each other. But when push comes to shove, they would rather die than ask for help. Pride is what destroys them. It's what prevents them from moving forward. At the core, both stories are about power, the desire for power, the pursuit of power, and the consequences of power. Michael Corleone wants to be the most powerful man in the world. He wants to be untouchable. He wants to be feared. But in the end, he's brought down by his own hubris. Tommy Angelo wants to be respected. He wants to be someone important. He wants to be someone who can make a difference. But in the end, he's brought down by his own greed. Both Michael and Tommy are destroyed by their own desires. Both stories teach us that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is a common theme in many great stories, but it's handled in such a masterful way in both The Godfather Part 3 and Mafia that it's impossible not to be affected by it. At the core, both stories are about family. The bonds of family, the ties that bind us together, and the sacrifices we make for family. Michael Corleone sacrifices everything for his family: sanity, his happiness, and ultimately, his life. Tommy Angelo sacrifices his morals, his dignity, and ultimately his soul. Both Michael and Tommy sacrifice everything for family. Both stories teach us that family is the most important thing in life. It's the one constant we have in a world that's constantly changing. So what do you think? Did I convince you to play Mafia or watch The Godfather Part 3? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave a like. It helps me out a lot. Thanks for watching. See you next time.